Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 59. And welcome everybody who's in the chat room. Before I go on, if you want to be in the chat room, click on the link below to Patreon, and you can join, and you can be in all the chat rooms and all the live shows. By the way, the live shows are only live for Patreon, not for the public. After the show is done, and then I put it public. But this lets me have a wonderful community in here, like these folks. So we have Christine and Christine from two different countries. Welcome. We have Florence. We have Joe from the UK. We have Michaela, and Lisa S is here, and Lisa N is here. Again, two different countries. Let's see who else is in here. Florence is here. Allison is here. Benny is here. Benny is here with Jack, I'm sure, his best friend. He's coming in from Denmark. And I think I've caught everybody, but I'm not sure. And so I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat screen. And can you all hear me properly, just to check before I start? Here's another one I don't even know about. Is anyone watching the Darrell Brooks trial? I didn't even know about this trial. So maybe I'll start. I don't usually watch trials. Let me explain why. People ask me if I do this, if I watch trials. I don't have the time to sit there every day and go through the entire trial, because trials, generally speaking, are extremely tedious. So they're wonderful things to put on in the background, kind of like me. If you're cleaning, if you're doing the laundry, if you're driving, if you're cooking, they're great. But they are very long. A lot of trials are very long, and there's a lot of information put out there that is not exactly exciting. Like they might get an expert up on the stand and go over his credentials for an hour. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I got to move this slightly. Hi, Christine. I want to thank Christine again for this really nice. She's got me set up for the next year for 2023 with this really cool book. And now it's like reflecting, but I love it. So let me see if I can set it back and have no reflections. Don't do that, book. Oh, there we go. Cool. And thank you, Christine. Loud and clear. You're hearing me. Benny says Jack Daniels, old number 7 is here too. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. I found that Jack really loves my programs. And if he's with anybody, he always inspires them to enjoy my programs too. Oh my goodness. So I don't know the Darrell Brooks trial. I'll have to look it up and see what the trial is about. Lisa S says, I suggest you watch it for about a half hour. You'll be so entertained. Really? Okay, let me go back here. Reticent Robin. Hi, Reticent Robin. I'm not watching the Brooks trial, but I've seen a few clips. Woo-wee, he's something else. Has a fool for a client. Oh, he's representing himself. Gotcha. Representing. Yeah. Wow. I'm real curious now, so I'll have to take a look at it, because as they always say, if you somebody who represents themselves as a lawyer has a fool for a client, and the judges really hate when people represent themselves. But there are reasons people do this, mind you, because sometimes they simply can't afford the lawyer. The lawyer gets outrageously expensive, especially in cases where it's more like, let's say, a child custody case, or those kind of things. When people get divorced, the divorce here, these things can run into tens and $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, and people don't have the money. So they choose to represent themselves. But the judges don't take kindly to it, and they get really snarky about it. So it doesn't do you. If you're doing a case which, like a civil case, which just has maybe the judge involved, it can go badly. But if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. And yes, you can get, one of the, attorneys that'll be provided to you by the state if it's a criminal case. But sometimes they're not like the best. Sometimes they're okay, but sometimes they're not the best. So, but then you got these criminals who think they're so smart that they're just going to represent themselves because they think they can really play the game. And if you watch my recent video on the murder of Anderson Cotta, the guy that murdered her, Bobby Joe Leonard, represented himself in one of his cases for the abduction, rape, and attempted murder of a 13-year-old girl. And he represented himself. Didn't go well. Let me tell you, didn't go well for him at all. Shouldn't have done that. But it was pretty funny to watch the case. You're right. So I'm going to have to check it out. So Oh, is that who it is? Oh, that's who it is. Daryl's the guy that ran over Christmas parade participants in Wisconsin last year. He's representing himself. What an idiot. I mean, wow. Oh, what an idiot. That's hard to say. What? Wait a minute. What? Carolina, you're having a problem. Your screen says live in 6 minutes, but it's been over 6 minutes. Is anybody else having trouble seeing me here? Let me know. That's weird. Does anybody have any other? Oh, are you kidding me? Just you, Carolina? Can anybody else see and hear me? Because Carolina, you may have to go out and come back. Molly says tap the center of your screen. Huh. Interesting. Fascinating. Okay. No trouble. Okay. Believe me, Carolina, I have so many quirks on this end doing the show that I'm not surprised people have quirks on the other end, depending on the what you're using, and something just goes weird. Something just goes weird. So unfortunately, Carolina, I think it's just you. Reticent Robin says, go out and come back. Yeah, hopefully it'll work. I'm glad everybody else can see me, because otherwise I just have to start the show over, which, because this is unlisted, I actually can do that, which is nice, and because it's not live. I mean, it's live to you, but not to the public. Okay, I want to go on to talk about, wow, there's so many things. Okay, I'm going to start with something that really ticked off Benny, and I can't blame him on this one. Okay, let me tell you what ticked off Benny. This is in the news recently. That was on Sky News, which I used to do Sky News, by the way, and I don't do it anymore. Anyway, Sky News had breaking news. You know, I always love how they have breaking news. It's not really that breaking, but okay, we're going to call it breaking news. And the breaking news says, suspect in Madeleine McCann disappearance, Christian B, charged in Germany with sexual offenses, allegedly. Remember the allegedly part, although it's likely, committed in Portugal between 2000 and 2017. And of course, they show the Portugal, really nice. And then on the right side, you have Martin Brunt, who is a so-called journalist who I do not particularly like. So I have a rhyming word to go with his last name. Well, I shouldn't do that because that's kind of tacky, but I do. Anyway, so they have this show. And I will say one thing about what Brunt did do. He goes, these cases are not related to Madeleine McCann. But what ticks off Benny, and I get it because he's correct about this, it may not be related to Madeleine McCann, but the entire segment has nothing but Madeleine McCann pictures on it. I mean, constantly. See Madeleine on the left, linked with Christian B. Bruckner, because they won't say Bruckner, but Bruckner. Christian Bruckner on the right. They're linked together. So for most people who watch this, who do not understand the entire case, and who believe Christian Bruckner abducted, raped, and murdered Madeleine McCann, although there's zero proof, and the German prosecutor's full of it and full of lies, and has never been able to accomplish actually charging him because he doesn't have evidence. But they link these two together like this. And this is what the media will do. Because it makes money. It gets views. It is a thing that turns people on. So Madeleine McCann's picture was here through the entire segment. All kinds of versions of Madeleine McCann's picture. Because you ask, was the segment about the crimes of Christian B and the fact that he's done some naughty things that aren't very nice and he should be convicted? No, that's not what it was about. Nobody gives a crap. The media especially does not give a crap about Christian B and his crimes, which were sexual assaults and rapes. They don't care about that. The only thing they care about is linking these two together, linking Madeleine McCann to Christian B, because Christian B alone is not a story. But if you can link Christian B to Madeleine McCann, which they've been doing for the last, I guess, a couple of years now, time after time after time, because Madeleine McCann is a massive moneymaker for the networks. So it's all about who abducted Madeleine McCann, who took her. Oh, it's Christian B. Christian B must have taken her. And all kinds of ludicrous stories coming out that have absolutely no basis in evidence. But it's a moneymaker. So this is why I stopped doing most media appearances, because I got really tired of the agenda behind it. The agenda was either to promote some either something political or something, and I'm talking about crime now. I'm not talking about someone else, but or the popular suspect of the day, whatever. It was never about, can you tell us, Pat Brown, what is accurate? Because if I tell them that in the pre-interview, I don't get on the show. Consequently, you've never seen me on, I think it was on about Madeleine McCann only maybe twice in my entire career. And one was Montel way back in the beginning, and another was for Australia News. And then after that, they won't let me on because I'm not following the program. And they want the program to be, she was abducted, because that's where their excitement is, and they don't get sued by Carter Ruck. So they're out to make money, and that's it. They get views. They don't care. Real journalism is pretty much dead. So yeah, I see why you were annoyed, Benny, for a good reason. Oh, shoot. Hope I didn't. Okay. Hi, Christine Wilson. I thought I clicked the thing that like puts you in detention for 10 minutes because I'm mad at what you say. And I've done that to people because I clicked the wrong spot. And then they're like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, did I do that to you? I've never done that to anybody who's one of my patrons. Never. Christine Wilson says the media don't give a crap about Madeleine either. Well, no, of course not. That's not an issue. I mean, the media rarely cares. I mean, I'm not going to say that there aren't people, who in their own hearts don't feel sadness for certain victims and things like that. But the media as an entity cares about making money. Not truth. And that's what always bugs me. I don't care if you make money. I just want you to be truthful about it, And if you can be truthful, make money, fine. But if you're a lying dog and make money off of non-truths, I don't like it. It is typical of news in the Madeleine McCann case. So Gretchen says, so the cases, hi Gretchen, aren't related, but they are. Typical of Sky TV, pretty much. Allison says, love your rhyming slang. Yeah, blunt. Yeah, that wasn't quite what my rhyme was, but okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. All right, so that was the first one. I thought, I'm with you, Benny. It's always extraordinarily annoying to me. I've gotten used to it, but it's so frustrating. I wanted to point out one more thing. I talked about the Adnan Syed case, and who's on the left, who just has been totally he's let out of prison. Now they're not going to retry his case. He's a free man. He's free to make millions of dollars off of Netflix. And on the right, we have Marilyn Mosby, who she's leaving because they don't want her anymore. The Baltimore City State's attorney. She's the one that got him out. And I read this thing about the case, and I was so pleased about what I read. This guy wrote this thing, says Mosby's final insult to Baltimore. Marilyn Mosby, because people said, who's Marilyn Mosby? Who don't live in Maryland, around Baltimore, they don't know who she is. And they're like, well, why would, no, she helped, her office of the prosecution got him out of prison. And then they said they would retry him if DNA came back proving, DNA came back proving anything. And the DNA came back. And of course it was touch DNA, and his touch DNA wasn't among the DNA on her boots or shoes. So she dropped the case and won't retry, which was never an issue. She was never going to retry this case. She wants Adnan Syed out because she's getting publicity from it. Now, let me explain this for a second. Marilyn Mosby's tenure as Baltimore's chief prosecutor has been an unmitigated disaster for Charm City, highlighted by her persistent refusal to prosecute the guilty. Now on her way out the door after being deposed by a disgusted electorate, you betcha, Mosby has one final insult for her beleaguered constituents, freeing a convicted murderer. Elected in 2014, Mosby was one of the first officials to run on a platform of, and my Anderson Cotta video, I talk about prosecutorial misconduct, and that this is a reformed prosecutor who wants to change the system from the inside and provide equity. Now, I try not to be a political channel, and I don't have a problem if you want equity. If that's your decision in life, if you want to fight what you think are the wrongs, I don't have a problem with that prosecutor in Arlington County. If she not being a prosecutor, she used to work for the Innocence Project as a defense attorney, which is kind of odd to jump over to the prosecution, right? But she thought she could then sneak in and do her Innocence Project work through the prosecution, which is wrong. That's not what your job is. But if she wanted to be political and wanted to fight the political battle of things that she wanted to see done, I think that is perfectly an American thing to do. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with when you bring it into a job that's not your job description. So Mosby did the same thing in Baltimore. She was one of the first officials to run on a platform of deprosecution. And you're the prosecutor, decarceration. She wanted people out of prison and demonizing the police. She was part of the Freddie. I forgot his name now. Jeez, I'll get to it in a minute because I'm blanking here. Demonizing the police. The results were predictable. Homicides in Baltimore rose above 300 murders per year for every year Mosby was in office. A brutal high number for a mid-sized city. This year may set a new record. Citizens have fled, and this is absolutely true, with Baltimore's population dropping by 35,000 people between 2010 and 2020. Now Mosby is under federal indictment. And I live in Bowie, Maryland. Bowie, Maryland is about, I think I'm 20 some minutes outside of Baltimore. I live here. Here's DC and here's Baltimore, and I live in the middle. Okay. Some people say, when I say, oh, I'm from Bowie, they go, oh, Baltimore. I'm like, no, DC. A lot of people from Bowie will say we're from DC because we don't want to be associated with Baltimore. That's how bad it is. So there's a line where the kind of like the DC suburbs end, and then the Baltimore suburbs begin, and then there's Baltimore City. Okay. And there's a lot of history and culture in it. Some of it good, some of it bad. There are things I do love about Baltimore. Living there and driving through there are not one of them, or two of them. Okay, so I don't go there very often because it's violent up there. It's violent. And you remember The Wire, the wonderful series The Wire? It's pretty accurate. That was a great fictional depiction of Baltimore. All right. Anyway. And now Mosby is under federal indictment. So you say this woman is not a clean operator here. She's under federal indictment for perjury and submitting false statements in an alleged attempt to swindle the federal government for COVID-19 relief funds to buy a vacation home in Florida. It's little wonder that the Baltimoreans finally voted her out of office. All right. And yeah. Okay. So now, with the city reeling and her reputation in tatters, the safest exit strategy for Mosby would have been to wind down her road quietly. I disagree. I think she did exactly what she needed to do to basically make herself on the way out. Suddenly people will see her as a hero because all this has been bad news. But when she got Adnan Syed out of prison and a free man, she's the cat's meow now. I think she was brilliant. I think this guy's wrong about that. So they're talking about it goes on to say, about the Adnan Syed case. But now, then we have the serial podcast. That's what brought everybody to believe. I'm going to get into the issue of podcasts in a minute and releasing of information and what it does, what the whole media thing does with these documentaries, podcasts, all trying to get guilty people out of prison. All right. So anyway, but the case seemed to be closed, that nothing was going to happen with Adnan Syed. But Mosby had other plans. With her time in office running out, she requested. Now, mind you, she'd been in office long enough to do this earlier, but it wasn't until she got indicted and was kicked out that she's thinking, I got to refurbish my reputation. So with her time running out in office, she requested that the Baltimore Circuit Court throw out Syed's conviction. Mosby's office does not say that they believe Syed is innocent. And a lot of people miss that point. Only that they lack confidence in the integrity of the conviction. Now, the prosecution office didn't used to lack confidence, but they're only lacking confidence under Mosby, right? Mosby now claims that other suspects existed whose identities were not disclosed to Syed's defense, although she hasn't provided those identities. So this is where you start saying, there were other suspects. And in every case, you can point out 50 suspects. I guarantee you, the mailman, we don't have milkmen anymore, but the mailman, the Amazon driver, the UPS driver, the FedEx, all those people could have done it. Oh, could have done it. And that's what, then the defense starts saying, you didn't investigate all these people. And then they'll have somebody who says something squirrely thing, making a joke. Oh, see, you didn't investigate that. And now they claim a lot of crooked stuff. Anyway, they claim there's Brady violations, which I don't see as Brady violations. So I'm not going to get to all the different things here. But why would she pursue this now? It's because she's going to get something out of it, which is concerning to me, because I know that prosecutors are political animals, and often they're too much political animals and not just doing their bloody job, which is to prosecute a case that they believe the evidence is substantial to convict somebody. That's their it's supposed to be justice for the family, justice for the citizens, safety for the citizens. It's not for you to do whatever you think you're going to do to prove something other than that the person's guilty. So she's on her way out of office. So freeing Syed has no consequences for her. You betcha. If she decides not to retry him, this was written before. So, oh, what a surprise. She didn't retry him. Baltimoreans and the victim's family have no recourse because they can't vote her out now because she's already out. So that's that. Let's see what it says at the end here. So here we are. That's what she did. And I just thought it was interesting because I want you to understand that she's being indicted because she looks to be an alleged crook. Okay, she and her husband, alleged crooks. So this is not a woman who cares about justice. This is a woman who cares about herself. And she disgusts me. And so does the one in the Arlington case I just did on Andres and Carter. Disgusts me because I don't care if you want to fight for politics everywhere else in the world. It shouldn't be done in that office for that reason. So that's just a real, why am I forgetting Freddie's name, by the way? Hold on a second. Hold on. Freddie. What's Freddie? Freddie, Baltimore. I got to put him back. I forget his name. I don't know why I forget his name. Freddie Gray. If anybody doesn't know the killing of Freddie Gray, this is Mosby was around on that. 2015. He's a 25-year-old African-American. He was arrested for illegal possession of a knife. He was transported in a van, and he died on the way due to injuries to his spinal cord. So what happened was every single police officer who was in the vicinity pretty much got arrested, even people who weren't even in the van with him. He was arrested because he's a dude's a drug dealer. He's a bad guy in the community. I mean, he's a bad guy. He's been dealing drugs to children forever and ever. And he gets arrested over and over and over again. And so he knows how to get arrested properly. He knows how, hey, dude, my police officer friends here. You're here to get me. Let me put my hands behind my back. And you do that. You just let me sit in the van. You sit there quietly. He doesn't do that. He fights. He spits. He does everything he can to fight the police every single time he's arrested. They know this guy. And anyway, they put him back in the van, and he started doing stuff back there and ended up breaking his neck. Now, there's questions of whether he was properly belted into the van at that point. And I'm not going to get into that whole case. However, this became a big issue in Baltimore, and of course, Mosby was rolling around, and it got to the point where it was just sad. I was scared because I have one of my children is in law enforcement, and the thought of my child getting arrested for doing their job, because not only the people just in the van, but everybody else who was around, who was police officer, got arrested, and they lost their work. If they got convicted, they would never be with their families again for 2 decades. It was very, very frightening for anybody who had anybody in law enforcement. And this became a big political issue in the town. And then Mosby was into that one as well. And I want to point something out, because this is where, one of the most important things about pointing this out is it's hard to get justice, and it's hard to know the truth if these things get mixed up together. So I want to point out this case that was just brought to me by one of you wonderful patrons. Let me pull it up here. And I've never heard of this, and I think it's really interesting because it's Baltimore again. We got a problem here in Baltimore, let me tell you. Which is why I don't go there. Although I am going there to see Hamilton in a couple of weeks. So the person I'm going with, who is a family relative, who is a police officer, I said, we're going to a part of town that's not so great. And that family relative said, no worries. I got you covered, Ma. because they can carry. Anyway, we're going to go see Hamilton. And so we're going to have fun. We're going to have a great evening out. But it's the rare time I go to Baltimore, but only because I have armed protection. Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. I'm trying to find my request here. Okay. So, all right. So, Molly, thank you very much for this request. Molly says, I don't know if you caught the incident in Baltimore in August of 2020. I'm not going to read the entire thing, just a part about the case, where a pickup driver, a white dude, hit and ran over 3 bicyclists who were black that were in a large group of riders who were out for an evening spin. And let me tell you about the group of riders, and just because you can get a kind of picture. I live in Baltimore. We are I think the richest African-American community in the country. And we have a lot of bicyclists here. And I see them at Dunkin' Donuts usually in the morning. And so it's a 100% black group of bicyclists. And they're usually dressed in like really cool outfits, and they're all together, like 20 or 30 of them. And then they go off bicycling down the way. And it looks really cool because I like to support people who do healthy things in life. And so when I see a whole group of bicyclists going down the way, I'm like, that's really cool. I hate bicycling, but I like it for them. But I just want to point out one thing. And this is most of the time when you have a group, you have people who are aware of being as visible as possible on the road. Because sometimes when I drive around the same area at night, what I see are pedestrians and bicyclists in total black. Pedestrian in total black. You can't see them as you're driving down the road. You run right over the guy because you can't see him. We have a lot of deaths on the road coming toward my house because people walk across at 1 o'clock in the morning dressed in dark clothing. You can't see them. Usually they're drunk or something, but they get hit and they die, and it's sad. But there's also bicyclists. They're on a bike and they don't have like the flashing light on the back. They're not wearing fluorescent yellow and green. They're in dark clothing with nothing on the back. And I've taught my granddaughter this because I think, I keep saying to her, and she'll, hey, when you're on the road, you got to realize that it's always been not so safe off of a bike path. When you're on a road, it's a scary thing anyway, because people can look down at their texting or something. They shouldn't be doing it, but they might do it and they might drift over and wipe you right out, especially if they don't see you. So my granddaughter now points out, look, Grandma, he doesn't have a flashing light. Look, he's dressed in a dark blue outfit. I'm like, that's what I'm telling you. He's going to get hit. And so I'm trying to, help teach her safety rules. So I've seen groups that comply to all the proper safety things with the bright fluorescence and the flashing lights. And usually those are the road groups. So this was a road group in Baltimore. And so that's a good thing. And here's the problem. I don't know all the issues here. I think that's good. If they're riding in a group and we have all the proper outfits on and the flashing lights, this is a group that is provided for safety, that the people driving near them should see every one of them. Having said that, I don't know that that's true. I'm assuming that. I don't know because I don't have pictures of that group. It turns out it was 9:30 at night. I'm always concerned about nighttime stuff because it's harder to see people at night. And also, sometimes the drivers on the road, maybe this guy was drinking. I don't know. I went on to his, there's very little information on this case. I went on to the Maryland website and it says something about it, like a toxicology report, and it didn't seem to come back. So I don't know if he was trashed and drunk, because one of the claims that they made, let me read what happened here. He apparently, the driver, Brian Adams, left the scene. He was 32 years old at the time in 2020. Left the scene because he hit somebody and then he drove away. So that's bad on you right there. He was charged with 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder and 3 counts of first and second-degree assault. And the case got a lot of press at the time. I can't find that press, Molly. I don't know where it is. There's very little press here. Maybe I can't seem to pull it up on the internet. So on Google. His trial was on 9/23/22. The attempted first-degree murder and first-degree assault charges were dropped. He was found guilty of second-degree assault. He has been found guilty. He's going to be sentenced, Molly just told me, in January. And she said, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on someone being charged with attempted murder as any means or predication of them doing any more of the same or worse in the future. So the question comes down to is, did he intentionally hit the riders? Okay. Now, let me put up an explanation from somebody who was there and got hit, or his friend got hit. Let me read this to you. Hands down, it was the second most scariest moment of my life, Williams said. You don't even think you're going to live it until you live it. And when it happens, it's a shock. Williams participated in a bike ride Friday night with about 300 other people through downtown Baltimore. No, 300 people is a lot of people. This isn't the 30 people I see, 300. So that seems like a publicized event. 300 people. If you got that many people riding in Baltimore in the night, you would think there'd be some kind of setup for protection. So like blocked off areas, but I don't know about that. Williams, okay, so he said he was participating in the bike ride Friday night with about 300 other people through downtown Baltimore. He said the driver of a red pickup truck caught his attention. He started screeching his tires, Williams said. Usually a person screeching their tires, they were driving too fast and, oh my God, there's bicyclists there and can I stop in time? Or wasn't driving too fast, but just saw the bicyclist and said, oh my God, I'm going to hit somebody, and slammed on the brakes. Williams said the truck hit one driver on Eastern Avenue and Chester Street and then took off. All right. I'm going to say, in theory, it seems to me, since later on he did run from the police when they were after him, so he had a warrant out and he was running away. I'm going to say it's kind of maybe a personality trait. I think he hit somebody right there. I don't know that it was on purpose. So this is where the issue of whether it's attempted murder. Attempted murder has to be, there's going to be motive behind it. He tried to kill the guy. Or did he just hit the brakes trying to stop and was too late and whacked somebody and then freaked and drove off? Now it gets more interesting. He hit one driver on Eastern Avenue. The traffic slowed down the truck as other bike riders followed the vehicle. At Eastern Avenue and Bond Street, Williams tapped on the passenger side window of the truck to let the driver know what happened. Okay, I'm gonna claim BS on this one. You just see your friend get hit. The guy drives off. Now you have a mob trying to catch up with this guy because you're pissed. I don't think so. It's, dude, you just killed my friend, or you think you killed my friend. I mean, I'm going to say tapping doesn't seem realistic to me. I think he's like downplaying that. I'm assuming he's beating on the window. I might do the same thing. So you hit my friend, I'm going to come beat on your window too. All right. So further on. All right. To let the driver know what happened. He said that's when the truck took off again, hitting him and two other riders. Williams said the truck also hit two other cars. Okay. Here's where things still get sketchy. Now, I'm not defending this Brian guy at all. He hit somebody. He should have stopped right then and there and said, I know I did that. But you're in Baltimore, so maybe he freaked. He drives away. He is then chased by the mob. Yes, they're on bicycles, but they're still a mob, right? I'm not going to say his windshield was tapped on. I'm going to say somebody started beating on his windshield, and he sees people coming around him. He's frightened. He takes off, and taking off, he hits more people. That's what I think happened. I can't say the guy didn't hit people. I'm not saying that. I don't even know if he's a nice guy. He might have been drunk. He might be a jerk. He might whatever. He might have been a whole bunch of things. But he was also in Baltimore. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because here's where you have a weird intersection of trying to understand how things could happen. Let me talk about the squeegee guys in Baltimore. Okay, squeegee guys. All right, let me find it. We have a problem with these squeegee guys in Baltimore, and a little bit in Prince George's County where I live, and a little bit more in D.C., but huge in Baltimore. All right, there was a shooting in Baltimore. This article is called "The City of Broken Windows." All right. The day after he allegedly killed a motorist at an intersection near Baltimore's Inner Harbor, one of the city's numberless squeegee workers turned 15. A week later, he was arrested and charged as an adult with first-degree murder. In this tragic story, there is much to learn about America's ideological divide and political dysfunction, and the decline of once great cities. So what happened in this case, I'll just make it quick. A 48-year-old guy was driving along, and apparently he was approached by the squeegee guys. Now, theoretically, what it's supposed to be is, sir, would you like me to wash your window? And you can say, no, thanks, and you just drive away. But it's very aggressive. Some of the squeegee guys are like, I'm on your window, pay me. And there has been a lot of violence from the squeegee kids. They're usually teenagers. And the idea is that they're out making money by doing this. Like I bought a, like sometimes people will be selling like bottles of water on the road. And it's just a bottle of water. You give them $1, they give you a bottle of water. They sell you a newspaper on the side of the road, but they're not threatening you. They're not on top of your car and scaring the crap out of you. And the squeegee guys have not been exactly your most peaceful fellow. So this guy got freaked apparently, and then came out of the car with a baseball bat, and then he got shot by one of the squeegee kids. There's a question of who was the aggressor in this, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but I want to point out that Baltimore has become a very dangerous place. And there's a lot of jokes when you're traveling overseas. Like if you're driving down certain roads in certain countries and you hit somebody's goat, you don't stop. You get the heck out of there before the whole village descends on you and attacks you. I mean, it's an old joke, but there's a reality to that because you're the outsider and you are in a place that you have now caused an accident or a crime. And if you're not protected by law enforcement, you can be killed by the mob. And that's what happens in Baltimore. Now, so looking at this situation with a squeegee guy who got shot and killed by the 15-year-old, I've been in Baltimore, and I'll tell you, I don't like being there. I went there once for work at I think it was 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night for a job at the hospital. And I was driving along by my GPS, and a fight broke out in front of my car, and there were 20 people fighting in the street. And I'm in a little teeny red Mazda. I'm obviously not a local, and I'm like, I'm going to get killed. I told them never send me there again. And it doesn't mean that there's not wonderful parts about Baltimore. It's just that it's got a very high crime rate. And because they've been decriminalizing so many things and Mosby has let so much go by, the town has gone out of control. So it's illegal in Baltimore to wander through traffic at stoplights and panhandle or clean windshields for cash. It's illegal, but nobody stops it. So therefore, they descend on your cars. And that's the way it is. And that policies have created a pervasive sense of disorder and threat, especially in Baltimore's minority neighborhoods. So don't understand, this is not people living in those neighborhoods who are considered minority are also suffering for the consequences of what's going on. So it's bad for everybody. So it's basically disorder breeds more disorder. And that's what's happened in Baltimore. I'm not going to go through the whole article, but disorder breeds disorder. And so Baltimore has an absolute reputation of being dangerous as all get out. So for the guy in the pickup who hit the bicyclist, I don't know why he hit the first bicyclist. Did he not see him because it was dark and the guy wasn't wearing proper clothing? Or was the guy, Brian, whatever his name is, drunk and hit the guy? I don't know. And should he have gone away? No. But if he's afraid of the mob, maybe. Then the mob did come after him. So, it's very confusing. I'm not standing up for this guy. But they did drop the attempted murder charges because there was no evidence like the parade guy that you're all talking about. That parade guy is a mass murderer. He drove purposely to murder all those people in the parade. That's mass murder. This guy, I don't see mass murder there. I see more of an accident. Now, if he was drunk driving and hit this guy, well, that's a charge to be leveled against him. And then he drove off and hit more people. But again, at that point, was he scared or was he just being a jerk? And I don't know because I don't have all the details on the case, because people panic, they do stupid things when they think they're about to be attacked. And we've seen in the recent years where people are driving along, people jump on their vehicles and smash their vehicles in, and it becomes too dangerous to stay there. And even if the people block your vehicle, you need to step on the gas and run right through them. Is that attempted murder or are you trying to save your life? And then who judges that? Because that's where the problem comes in. I wasn't there to see what the bicyclists were wearing, why he hit the first one, why he ran from the guy, the mob who came up and tapped on his window. I don't know. Is he just a low-level jerk. And even if he was a jerk, even if he's a guy I don't ever want to spend time with, even if it's that kind of creepy dude, I can't, it's very hard to judge that, what happened at that moment. So I think that's why, Molly, they dropped the attempted murder charges, because there was no absolute proof that he wanted to kill anybody, that he was trying to commit a mass murder or anything, or any racist thing, because the guy was white who was driving, and the bicyclists were black. So the theory could be that this was a hate crime, and he was going to run over all the black bicyclists in a hate crime. But unless we have proof of that, you can't go with that, and you can't go with attempted murder. So I think they went with what more reasonable, which would be an assault, essentially. Luckily, all of the bicyclists survived, and it was a frightening experience for them, obviously. I mean, especially the ones up front that that were bicycling along, and after this guy supposedly tapped on the window, and then the truck driver took off and hit the others. They didn't see that coming. So it was a whole escalation thing, but it gets tricky, because we have to go into how safe do we feel in our cities? Are we providing safety? Therefore, can you stop? Can you trust? Can you what's going on? And Baltimore's a mess, and it's a sad thing, because it's got a lot of beautiful things about the town. And I hate to see any town go that direction, but it's been a disaster, and it's a shame. It's just an absolute shame. And so that's the answer. I have that one on Molly. I thought that was really interesting, because I hadn't heard of that case, even though I live right outside of Baltimore. I'm not in the suburbs of Baltimore. Suburbs of DC. See, we want to separate ourselves from Baltimore. So I'm talking about everybody in our area. No one will say they're near Baltimore. They'll say DC, even though I think actually DC may be slightly further. But we're going to go there, because it's a tough town now. And watch The Wire if you want to know what I'm talking about. And The Wire was done a long time ago, and it still wasn't, it's still pretty accurate, which is amazing. Hold on a second. Let me see. I know Benny said something, Molly said something, and then let me see. Somebody else who wrote me, and I want to make sure I'm not missing it. I have all the other requests that you all have here about the cases. So hold on a second. I'm going to just go to the chat and see how y'all doing in there after I give my speech on this. Let's see. Well, lots of comments in the chat. Before I go on to some really interesting cases. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, really? That's interesting. Dan Abrams agreed with me about the Syed Mosby case. Oh, that is interesting. I used to do Dan Abrams show a lot. And I just have a funny story about the Dan Abrams show. So there was this was before, I think this is the time I used to do stuff on mass murder, and I stopped doing anything about mass murder, because I believe people in the media talking about mass murder and giving fame to the guy who committed the crime was just encouraging other ones. So I stopped doing all mass murder stuff. I believe this was back in the day, because I think I'd worked for almost like 72 hours straight without sleep. I was so exhausted, and they had me in for Dan Abrams' show. So I'm coming in from Washington. I don't know where to a show. I'm sitting in the studio with the camera on me, and I am like asleep on my feet. So I heard Dan ask this question, but then I had no idea what the question was. And this horrible panic came over me, because I'm on national TV and I had no idea what he just asked. And then my mouth moved. And then he asked another question. And then I forgot what that question was. And my mouth moved. And then another question. I didn't know what that question was. I was freaking out all over the place. And then they said, well, thank you, Pat. I went home. I said to my sister, oh my God, I've ruined my entire television career, because I was asleep and I don't know what I said. I don't even know what the question was. I listened to that show, and you couldn't tell anything. It looked totally normal. It was so freaky. But I guess I did, in my sleep, somehow actually know how to answer whatever question he asked that I didn't even remember. It was bizarre, most bizarre experience. But nobody knew. And I'm like, wow, you gotta be kidding me. Whew. Anyway. Wait a minute. What's... Wait, hold on a second. I got to back up here a second. All right. Let me back up a little bit. Hold on a second. Okay. Joe says Pat's into Cockney rhyming slang now. You know, I never liked that particular word. Whenever I heard that word in the US, it always offended me tremendously. But it means it's used completely differently in the US. So when I spent time in England and around British people, I got used to it in a completely different way. So now it doesn't bother me over there. It bothers me over here in the US. So, but let's see. We should let Joe have 5 minutes alone with Bruckner. Can he also have 5 minutes alone with the German prosecutor who's a big lying dog? I'd like that. Yeah, Freddie Gray. Thank you. Yeah, I blanked. Yeah, I totally blanked. And my funny story about the Freddie Gray case is just that, you know, I did back the blue on the Freddie Gray case because I did not think that he was murdered, and it was being made that way. And my son was working. My son is biracial. He was down in D.C. working. He was wearing his Baltimore hat for the Baltimore Orioles, you know. And some lady came up and gave him a white woman, and she came up, gave him a big hug, and said, "We're with you, and Freddie Gray." And my son came home and said, "Dang it! Now I gotta wear my Cowboys hat," because he did not think this was a reasonable trial, what they had done to the police officers in that particular case. And again, I am not for police officers doing wrong things to anybody. And there are certainly bad apples in the bunch. That wasn't one of those cases. And it was just, and the riots proceeded after that. And it was a very sad thing, messed up everything. But if you have people who are police in your family, it set off a level of fear, because if you got a crappy police officer in your family who deserves to go to prison, we're okay with that. You know, I'm okay with that. I mean, I want to drum out every bad police officer there is, but by indiscriminately doing it, that's why we have nobody joining the police force anymore. And I think in our county, we're down like 200 people, and a lot of places are down hundreds of people. And as a matter of fact, Minnesota's down so much, they had to hire a private firm to pay retired detectives to work on their cases. This is insane, because they can't get police officers anymore because of the anti-police thinking. And it just, you know, you're not going to join something where people aren't going to respect you and are possibly going to then accuse you of things you didn't do, and then you can, you know, destroy your entire life, end up in prison, or people will shoot you just because you're a police officer. So I think we have to repair this at some point along the way, because we need safety in our communities. And you can't let the broken windows thing happen like in Baltimore, where everything's out of control. In Minnesota too, Minneapolis, where it's out of control, and the safety of citizens, no matter what color you are, is in jeopardy. And nobody likes to live like that. And if you go into any neighborhood where supposedly people are complaining about the police brutality, you also find most of the people saying, "Can you bring the police back? Because hey, we're we're not safe, and we don't have a problem with the police." So, you know, I understand, I don't want to be a political channel, but I just think we have to be rational, and so that we have safety, and then we have to have decent justice system. So yes, we don't want prosecutors abusing their position and convicting innocent people, because that's what I talk about in the last show I did with Anderson Cotter. On the other hand, we don't want the prosecutor using it as a political pulpit and letting guilty people go. So that's the whole issue. Gretchen says, "I used to love the Inner Harbor area. I went quite often when I lived in Bethesda." Oh, you lived in the area. Yeah. Inner Harbor was lovely. And they've got so many cute neighborhoods in Baltimore, all kinds of cute neighborhoods with different cultural things. It's really quite fun. And if you're not getting shot, you don't want to be shot. Joe says, "The Wire, a great show. I have to say, I like the vibe when I visited Baltimore, although that may have been naivety on my part." Yeah, it has. It's a different vibe than Washington, D.C. And I rather like the vibe too, because it's more neighborhoody, and it's more little local cultures, like in different little places. And it can be really cool. But if you let the violence take over, the businesses are closing down because they can't keep the businesses open anymore. And that's businesses of all races, of all cultures, are having to close down because of the violence. And people can't leave their homes sometimes because of the violence. And again, it's not a racial issue. It's just that we've let crime get out of control, and people like Mosby didn't help. So let's see here. Darrell Brooks shaved his beard in jail, and Syed grew his beard. Well, you know, everybody's got to play their part. it seems corrupt figures are new norm. No, I think, Michaela, corrupt figures have always been there. I just think that somehow things have gotten a little out of hand this is an interesting problem. Christine, you bring a good point up. If she is found to be a crook, will the authorities have to look into all the cases she's been involved with? This happens. Yeah, this happens a lot. If you've got a prosecutor, you've got an expert, like in, let's say you've got somebody working in a lab and they turn out to be crooked because they misconstrued whether a person's DNA was really the DNA. They go back over thousands of their cases, and a lot of people have been released based on one crooked person. Now, that one crooked person may not have been crooked in those cases, but it throws that shade over everybody. So in this case, she's more likely to people out of prison than put them in. So I think that might not be such a big thing. It's usually the other way around. It gets to be a problem. Let's see. You're talking about the Brooks trial here. I'm going to have to really look into the trial. Now you've got me curious. And, Gretchen says, my brother's in the Army and he was stationed in Minnesota during the George Floyd case. Like you said, not enough police. And regardless of what you think about the George Floyd case, it did affect policing in Minnesota. So they've just completely lost control of that. And by the way, I have a case. I have to talk about this case because it's so bizarre. And this is not a violent case. A lot of times I don't usually talk about nonviolent cases, but this is just unbelievable. This is fraud. Absolute massive fraud in Minneapolis. So, and one of the problems we're having in Minneapolis is that lack of police, but also lack of there's a fear of oversight. There's a fear of actually trying to figure out if people are being honorable or not, because you don't want to be accused of things. So this is a group called Feeding Our Future, and they had gotten in 2019 $3 million to feed poor children. In 2021, they got $200 million to feed poor children in the Minneapolis area. I did not know there were so many starving children in the Minneapolis area, even during COVID, because even during COVID, when people lost their jobs, a lot of them got unemployment, and so they got food stamps and all that. So I'm not quite sure $200 million to feed the children of Minneapolis. Now, let me tell you this story, because it boggles the mind. It really does. Let me tell you. Hold on a second. Let me find the basics on it. All right. I'm trying to find the main. There's so much about this case. It just came out. It's huge. Is this it? Hold on a second. No, that's Baltimore. Get me out of Baltimore. I'm in Baltimore again. Oh, let me go to Minneapolis. Where is it? Hold on a sec. Okay, is this it? All right. Let's see if this is a good one. All right. Feeding the Future is the name of this group. Feeding the Future was a group that was started in Minneapolis, and they developed shell companies. And what they did was they defrauded, according to the FBI. The FBI on Thursday, and this is back in, let me tell you when this was back in. This was in January. Okay, in January 2021. The FBI on Thursday raided the offices of Feeding Our Future, a St. Anthony, that's suburbs of Minneapolis, based nonprofit. Since the start of COVID pandemic, has collected hundreds of millions of federal dollars marked for feeding disadvantaged children and adults. In 3 search warrants unsealed Thursday, the FBI alleges that instead of feeding hungry children, Feeding Our Future and several of its contractors spent millions on expenditures, including personal cars. Yes, they did. And junkets to places like Las Vegas. And they bought, is this one of the houses? This is one of the houses they bought, which is quite expensive. And then they bought a real estate in other countries, like in Kenya. And they allege that at least 3 Feeding Our Future employees, including executive director Amy Block, committed the fraud. No, they got 49 now, I believe. 49 people are involved in the fraud. The woman in the middle, the woman who has the red thing over her head, That is Amy Bach. She ran the whole thing. And all these ladies around her are members of the Somalian community. And most of the people that were arrested in this fraud are from the Somalian community. All right. Now, this poor guy here, this poor fella, he was a whistleblower. He's also a Somalian. He was a whistleblower because he was appalled when he found out what was going on, and he gave information. Poor guy he got so scared he fled the country. He went back to Somalia, and then he got attacked in Somalia. He's in a wheelchair. He's he's disabled in a wheelchair, and he got attacked in Somalia because I guess the word got back to Somalia. He whistleblowed on this crooked group, and they were saying things like they were feeding. Check this out. They were like, oh no, that's not it. Okay, see this little place here. This place had no signs outside. They were claiming they were feeding 5,000 children a day there. Really? How are 5,000 children going to get there in a day? So usually the Minnesota Department of Education actually approved the money that went to them. You see, so they're claiming, they're not saying there's any fraud with them, but really? Because they fed kids in their school. Well, that made sense. The kids, would go to school. During COVID, they would I think they sent out the food and they had pickup places and all that. But you're going to tell me that this little place, I think they serve 300 at a school for one school district. But, here we got, seriously, 5,000 kids went there? I don't think so. So they basically, this group defrauded hundreds of millions of dollars and bought houses, cars. And this one guy said, you could just see people all of a sudden who didn't have any money running around with all this fancy new electronics and the fancy new $70,000 car. And then they bought the house, and then they're taking these trips, and just absolutely unbelievable. So there's also one of the guys who supposedly maybe involved in it too. Also seems to be part of the politics there. So that's kind of interesting. The FBI says hardly any of the millions of dollars of Feeding Our Future administered actually went to children. So let's see. Where did he get his money? It's got this nonprofit got their money from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So somebody's not doing their job through two programs, the Child and Adult Care Food Program and the Summer Food Service Program. Together, both programs spent more than $4 billion to provide food for 7 million children across the country. Well, that's supposedly, but it funneled to these people. And so they got 40, let's say money went to, since COVID, went to 43 million in 2020 and 200 million in 2021. And no children were even fed. It's just appalling. That's absolutely sad and appalling. So they've arrested the Bach lady who is running the thing, and they arrested 49 other people. Funny thing is, they supposedly took their passports away, but didn't keep them in jail because they said they weren't a flight risk, but they were all had family and mostly Somalia, and they would fake passports and run away. So they've lost a few of them over to Somalia, and they're over there now. And now they're still saying the rest of them aren't a flight risk. I'm wondering how many are going to be here when, they've already taken all that money. Where's that money at? Is it someplace else in a bank? Where is it? But what a this is white collar fraud. We don't talk about that much and the damage it does. But all that money that could have truly gone to helping poor children in their own community in Minneapolis, which was having horrific problems. It went into this 49 plus Bach, 50 of them. They've been charged with, it's not as alleged at the moment, but 50 of them been charged with this kind of stealing all this money. It's outright theft. And I never even heard of this case. It's not, I don't know. Has anybody even heard of this case? Is it all over the news like it should be? Because we're talking about what? How much money? How much money? What is it? What was it again? 200 million in 1 year? How are we not hearing about this massive fraud? I mean, I can't fathom it. So I'm curious. Kayla says, I am poor and I need food and a housekeeper. Yeah, me too. But I had never heard about this case, and I'm surprised because that's a heck of a lot of money that was stolen for people who needed it. And one of the things I want to point out is that this is where I would say you get that little line of politics and cultural issues, is that when we become afraid to say somebody's a criminal when they're criminal, because we don't want to insult a group of people. And then we run into a problem where the people, even of that community, suffer, and we also have an interesting problem of when people come from other countries, whether they're legal or illegal, they bring culture with them. And I always try to point this out because it's very interesting. Each country has its own methodology of crime. It does. It's fascinating. The U.S. has its own methodology of crime. Mexico has its. India has its. And sometimes you'll see crimes go down which look similar in two different countries, but the motives are entirely different. The victims that are chosen are entirely different. And the methodologies are entirely different. Yet they're basically sort of the same, but it's done in a different way because that's kind of what's grown up in that culture. So if you're a detective, it behooves you to understand cultural differences, not so you can be anti any culture, because you can appreciate all of these different cultures and the wonderful things that they have. But you have to understand there's a criminal element in every culture and in every country. How do they behave? How do they work? And if you're not willing to look at that because you're so afraid, oh my God, I can't even look at it because I'll be, people think badly of me for even thinking something. Then what happens is criminals get away with things because we don't want to look. And it's frustrating to me because it hurts everyone. It hurts everyone of every color and every culture. There's nothing good about crime. When crime proliferates, it causes so much damage in so many different ways. But what a fascinating case, and I never even heard about it. Never even heard about it. So it's like, but we're a funny country as far as what we think is okay. We want to ignore, and this is the media. The media decides what we're going to learn about and what we're not going to learn about, and that's unfortunate. And here's an interesting case, and this happened in Brazil. So there were these two guys. The guy's name was Dom Phillips, and the other guy's name was Bruno Pereira. Say it right, Pereira. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. They were both killed. What happened was one was a journalist, and the other guy, Dom here. You see him here in the blue. He's conducting interviews with the indigenous village of Tiracambu in Brazil, in 2015. And he was here to also report on the Awa, considered one of the world's most endangered tribes. So he's a reporter. Which guy was it? As a reporter? Let me pull up the story because it's this is so sad because here's two guys trying to do good. But the reason I like to bring up the story is just because it amazes me that, again, I don't think sometimes we understand the risk factors. And journalists, I know take a lot of risks. They do. Where's my story? Okay, where'd it go? I've lost it. Oh, there. It's just a picture on top of it. Confused me. These guys got killed because, they filed murder charges against a guy named Pelado and also his brother and another guy. There are also 5 more inhabitants of the river community. They were accused by police of helping to hide the bodies of these 2 men. So it wasn't just one person that did this. It was a bunch of people that did this. And the 2 men were killed were Bruno, 41. He was a senior official at the Brazil Indigenous Affairs Agency. He once had overseen its operation in the remote Javari Valley region where he was killed. And Dom, 57, was the friend of this journalist. He was a Brazil-based contract writer for the Washington Post. And what happened was they were investigating these, what were these guys doing down there? They were, come on now. They were poachers. I think they're poachers. And what the sad thing was, we have on the left side, you see a group of nice people who live there. And then these poachers had sort of invaded the area and sort of terrorized the locals, but they were also, sort of from the region, and they were poaching. And then the government tried to stop them, didn't do a very good job. And then so these 2 guys go in there to get the story on what's happening, and they're trying to sneak around without any weapons. And they get on a boat and they go a little ways in the jungle, and then they get murdered and chopped up and burnt. A very horrific end of their lives. And obviously they're doing good things, but. I'm always amazed when, and this is what I want to point out. You can have a great community, But then you have this little group. If you remember Diane Fossey and the guerrillas in Rwanda, the same thing basically happened to her because she was doing this really great thing. She was trying to save the guerrillas. So what she was doing was working with the community, the indigenous community of the area, and she was hiring them on to work to save the guerrillas, giving them jobs so they wouldn't need to kill the guerrillas, you see, because that way they would be able to feed themselves and their family, and they wouldn't need to kill guerrillas to make money off the tourists, right? Or whoever else these people are who want heads of gorillas and hands. Sadly, within this group, she's helping everybody. There was that criminal group, and they weren't about to give up their poaching, and they went in and killed Dan Fossey, and it's really, really sad. But just a warning, trying to do good within an area, you have to be very aware that if bad people are there, and they don't operate on the same level as the rest of the people in the community. So that's why we have to weed out criminals. That's why we do have to have a level of law enforcement, because the local community can't fight against all the bad guys by themselves without some kind of help. That's my little soapbox for today. And now I want to talk about who was this one I want to talk about? Oh, let's just mention her just because it's annoying. At the same time, it's kind of funny. All right. Here she is again. She's been released from custody. Yes, she has. In case you don't know who she is, let me find my article on her. Hold on a sec. Where's my release thing? Hold on. Oh, here we are. Okay. Anna Sorokin, also known as Anna Delvey. She's under house arrest now, and she's leaving, and she's no longer in jail because she was in prison for all the fraud she did, but not in prison long enough. And then, of course, Netflix did their show about her, and she's not suffering. Let me tell you that. Convicted swindler Anna Sorokin spoke to the New York Times about how important it is for her to remain in New York despite the risk of deportation. More money is in New York, less money if she gets put back to Germany. I don't think Germany is quite fond of her at the moment. But America's all like gaga over her because of the Netflix show. Sorokin's case became the basis for the series Inventing Anna on Netflix. She was released Friday from U.S. immigration custody to house arrest. She says she told the Times, because, Anna Sorokin is, in my opinion, a 100% psychopath who is a pathological liar and has absolutely no... Yeah, that's what she is. She said, she told the Times she would feel like she was running from something if she allowed herself to be deported to Germany. Allowed herself to be deported. No, you shouldn't be here. You should go away. Let Germany deal with you. Letting them deport me would be like a sign of capitulation, confirmation of this perception of me as a shallow person. Oh, really? That's what deportation proves? Really? A shallow person who only cares about obscene wealth. And that's just not the reality. Okay. I mean, what's amazing about her, which I find fascinating, there are different kinds of psychopaths and the way they approach people. Hers is right in your face. She will tell you stuff right to your face and be okay. If you believe it, you don't believe it, it's fine. But I'm going to still tell you the same thing. And if I tell that to 100 people, and I can get 50 of them to believe me, I'm doing good. And I don't care what you think of me. That's her. So anyway, she's 31 years old. She's going to be released to home confinement, and she has to wear a little ankle bond. An ankle monitor. And she has to post $10,000 bond, which I think she got from Netflix. So that's not a problem. Anyway, she served 3 years in prison for conning $275,000 from banks, hotels, and rich New Yorkers. And asking about her plan, she says she's working on her own podcast because, she'll probably get 1 million subscribers, which hasn't come to fruition yet. Oh, okay. Because she was in prison. You can't do it when you're in prison. And that she wants to work on criminal justice reform to highlight the struggles of other girls. I'm going to say, maybe go become a prosecutor. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be a good job for you. Okay. She says she's learned so much being in jail and how impossible it is to have been through what I've been through without changing. I think it was very possible that you went through what you went through and didn't change at all. Oh my God, that's so funny. So now I gotta read one more thing about her, because she also did an interview for Glamour magazine, because Glamour is totally into crime and criminals. And here she is. She speaks exclusively to, this is before she got released from prison. Now this is just like the best, like, if you want to talk about the way psychopaths think, this article just is it. I'm going to link it below because I think it's fantastic. Not because Glamour did it, not because Glamour knew what they were doing, but just because the results were fantastic. She says, it wasn't scamming. It was getting a loan in unconventional ways. Hey, I wasn't carjacking him. I was just getting a vehicle in an unconventional way. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Oh, God. Anyway, so somebody goes in and interviews her because they're going to make money off this article, right? The world knows Anna Delvey, born Anna Sorokin, as a con artist, fraudster, faux billionaires, and perhaps even a notorious socialite swindler who climbed her way up the New York elite scene. She probably also climbed up a few elite people, but the scene, and lying about her size of her pockets. She says, oh, does she think this assessment is a fair one? And I wonder if she's at all remorseful. The answer is flat out no, because she's a psychopath. She has no remorse for anything she does. She says, I didn't scam any of my peers out of any money. There are people who would say, well, she didn't actually scam them. See, here's where a psychopath can twist things. Yes, her friends willingly gave up her money under certain beliefs that certain things would happen, like the money would be returned, and it wasn't. So she doesn't think that's a scam. She says it was against my peers. All my crimes were against financial institutions. And since a lot of people hate financial institutions, they're like, bully for you. All right. She says, and there's some very interesting statements she makes in here, and some of them, like a few of them I actually agree with, which is frightening. I'm not sure what that means about me. Anyway, let me go down it. She goes, let's see, what was the next thing she said that was really great? She's learned how to deal with stress because she didn't have a phone. Okay, that wasn't the big thing. Okay, I want to point out this. She says, Anna and ambition go hand in hand, so I had to ask her if there's a line she wouldn't cross to get exactly what she wanted. Well, murder, she says in jest, as I sigh in relief. Oh, sorry. She then elaborates, well, there are a lot of lines I wouldn't cross, but back then I grew up with this fake it till you make it. All right. There's a fake it till you make it, faking it being that you're spinning, not lying. She doesn't have a problem with lying her butt off. That's not faking it. That's just lying till you make it. That the whole culture was really big on at the time in the early 2010s, I guess. Oh, early 10s, 2000s, whatever she's saying. It's different now. Really? Okay, sure. She says, I think I cared about people even along the way, even with everything that happened 5+ years ago. So I wouldn't say that I was completely devoid of my empathy, of any empathy. How much do you care about your friends you're willing to take money from that you have no intention of paying back, and leave them where they're at? She goes, this is interesting. I think people are just born with certain traits of personality, and I think some people are just different. Yeah, you're a psychopath. And it's odd because I think she's almost proud of it. And I've actually been on on Quora and Reddit, where I see people saying, I am a psychopath. And then they explain how wonderful that is. So it's interesting. Psychopathy is now getting a new kind of makeover, shall we say. That psychopath can't help the way they are. They just have to learn to live with the way they are so that they can, live legally in society. Well, there's some truth to that. But on the other hand, they're just, it's interesting how they're proud of it. Proud of it. Then she says, Anna experiences in jail taught a lot about caring for others. I learned a lot about empathy and just being considerate of other people. From being in jail and being around so many women who are in a way worse position than me. That's very nice. All right. So she says, now this is the interesting line. The scrutiny that Anna got by putting her desire for fame and fortune above others led many to believe it could only have stemmed from pure narcissism. To that, she says, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are just selfish by nature. That's probably true. It's like you have to be selfish to a certain degree, and I won't deny that. You have to keep your eye on the prize, just being able to do anything, whatever it takes to get the job done. It's certainly not the prettiest aspect of it, but it's just reality. Now, there is a lot of truth in that. There are people who have the ambition to go after a huge prize, work themselves to death, and they're willing to do pretty much sometimes anything to get there. Narcissism does rank high in that group of people. The question is, how high? Everybody has self-interest. So when people say selfish, we have self-interest, but do we allow that self-interest to harm other people to some kind of large degree? Do we run over people to get what we want? That's the difference. She's that person. Anna's ultimate goal was never to be a celebrity, but that doesn't mean she hasn't enjoyed her newfound fame. Oh, you betcha, because psychopaths love attention. She definitely wanted the attention. That's why she wanted to be the rich girl. That's why she wanted to manipulate everybody. That's why she wanted to rip everybody off. It was fun getting over on people. And now she's famous. And now she's getting over on even more people. She shares with me how her celebrity status impacts her time in prison. Oh, yes. Everybody here knows who I am. Definitely. Somebody sent me an Inventing Anna calendar to sign. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay. She goes, I mean, nobody's hating on me. Well, not to my face, at least. Her laugh is contagious. Oh, I'm sure the glamour writer got her to sign something too. She goes, what does she want? She wants power, money, fame, in that order, she tells without hesitation. Yeah. And guess what? She said, oh, this one's interesting. She says, Anna strongly believes that scammers are only labeled scammers if they fail. Okay. In other words, she's talking about people like some of the big, huge institutions that have scammed people in institutions who have scammed people, famous people who've scammed people. And as long as they don't get caught, people adore them. It's only when they get caught that they're called scammers. And so there's a little bit of truth in that too. So she's quite aware, but she says here, were there elements of naivety and delusion at play? She says, I knew it was ethically questionable, but I did not see myself as a criminal. Of course not. Yeah. It's definitely not the same as robbing a bank or stealing from somebody. Really? That's not what it is? I thought what you committed was crimes. So she's running around that. So now let's see. She has a lot of other interesting things in this article. Let me go to the end of the article. I'll link it because it's just quite fascinating. And then she says, I feel like young people should be given a little more grace because I definitely would not have made the same choices I made when I was in my early to mid 20s. I learned so much. All right. So she wants her real second chance, she says. Do you all want to give Anna a real second chance? I'm still wondering how the heck she only got 3 years, or even, I don't even know if she got up to her 3 years. I think she should have been in prison for at least 10 to 20. But I'm a little harsh on crime, and that was fraud too. So it's like these guys in Minnesota who stole the money from children. I mean, they're actually worse, I guess, than the Anna Sorokin is, because she stole from the banks and from friends who wanted a fancy life. These guys in Minnesota and the woman and they're women and men all together stole billions of dollars of our tax money, by the way, just to fund themselves in fancy houses and land and other things, and stole and didn't give any money to the poor children. They're worse. I will say they're worse. I would give them, yeah, okay, maybe Anna Sorokin, give her 10. I'd give those other guys 30. I'm just not nice. Oh, yeah, it's a victimless crime. As long as it's the bank and people who are just wanting to use me. She thinks she didn't really use people. She offered them opportunities and then you used her, which is, there's some truth in that too. Gretchen says Anna should look up the word loan. It's only a loan if you pay it back. This is true. But you see, I think she was arrested at that point, so she couldn't pay it back. You know what will be interesting? Will she ever pay it back? I'm going to guess no. She will think she doesn't have to pay it back. That's what she'll think. Joe says, Anna is one of those women who I'd swerve after one glance. She actually looks psychopathic. I think it's the eyes and facial expression. You know, people have commented this on Joe that she's kind of creepy and she's not really a beauty. They can't figure out how she wrapped everybody around her little finger. And I think maybe part of it was that when she's in motion and when she's not being nasty, she plays the little girl. She has kind of a very childish face, and people fall for that. They just, and it's true that everybody wanted money. So she was playing them because she already knew what they wanted, which was the money and the fancy lifestyle. So even if she was nasty and mean, they just thought that was impressive. That must mean she's got money. So they were willing to guide themselves into believing things that they had made up in their own minds because they wanted what she was offering. So in a way, she's right. The people got scammed because they got scammed, and they chose to be scammed. Now, I have this problem sometimes when I see, for example, being the age I'm at, I see a lot of this elderly person, elderly grandmother, was scammed out of so much money by somebody. And we always feel sorry for this situation. But people are immediately horrified because they're assuming that the, quote, elderly person doesn't have the brain cells to figure out when they're being scammed. I'm sorry, but unless you've got Alzheimer's, you have perfectly fine brain cells. The problem is, even if you're 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, you can still be a greedy little creature. And you may still jump at something you think is going to give you a lot of money. And you're willing to not do things the proper way because you think you're going to gain something out of it. So if you're willing to not take the steps to protect yourself, not take the steps to find out if something is true or not true, if you're not willing to take that effort because you're greedy for whatever you think that person is offering you, then there's no difference between you and a 20-year-old getting fooled. So don't keep pushing that on the elderly, like, people over a certain age have no brain cells to be able to figure this out. No, they're still greedy. They're usually still greedy unless they truly, truly have dementia. They're still greedy. As long as I can get a loan from her. Yeah, there we go. Lauren says, I believe people should have to go up some kind of ladder to success. She doesn't want to do the work. Give her an entry-level job. She will never have an entry-level job. She's already rich. She's, from the moment she is at wherever, she doesn't go back to Germany. She's going to make a fortune. She's going to make a fortune, just like Adnan Syed. He's going to make a fortune because crime pays. It's paid for by the media. And the Son of Sam law doesn't apply to you if you're, Syed, Adnan Syed couldn't make money as long as he was in prison and been convicted of the murder of Heyman Lee. But now that Mosby gotten him out and taken away the conviction, he's now considered innocent until proven guilty. Even though he was already proven guilty, she's taken that away. So unless they went back to trial and proved him guilty again, the Son of Sam law doesn't apply to him. He's now innocent. He now can do all the books and make all the money he wants off of the murder of Heyman Lee. That's the way it works. So now, since Anna wasn't even a murderer, she can make all the money she wants off of her crimes. And she will. And she will become extremely wealthy. And the sad part is that our media plays into all this because that's what makes them money too. You see? And Anna knows this. She knows she can play everybody and they're going to cooperate with her because you don't think Glamour magazine got readers for that. The advertisers paid money for this article. I don't know how much they paid. She was in prison at the time. I don't know if she could get money for this article at the time, but she's going to get paid right and left now, from now on, for, maybe Netflix series number 2 or whatever. She's not the podcast. I can guarantee you she's going to have a ton of people. Her YouTube channel will show up and she'll just have, 2 million people in like 2 weeks, There's a Nigerian prince that needs your help. Oh, yes. It's also usually just the poor Nigerian lady who lost her pocketbook for some criminals or something. That's really funny. But if there's a real Nigerian prince, I'll take him. But I'm going to check out his credentials first. I'm going to make sure, he's not catfishing me. I'm going to make sure I get a real Nigerian prince and I want a handsome one, And it has to be at least reasonable age to me. I don't want to take him too young. So, but I will check out all his credentials before I run off with a Nigerian prince. So he's going to have something going for him. I want to point this one out just because this one just it's hard. Wait a minute. I don't think I took a picture with it, but this is the story right now that's just going around. This little quick one here, because it's a Me Too thing. And, I have my issues with Me Too just because I believe in evidence, and I don't believe it's okay to accuse people and you don't have evidence of things. And this is the Anthony Rapp thing. Okay. Anthony Rapp is this actor. And he's accusing Kevin Spacey of sexual assault. Now, I'm not standing up for Kevin Spacey in any way, shape, or form, but this story just blows me away. Anthony Rapp fights back tears during testimony in sex abuse trial against Kevin Spacey. Now, when I heard about this, I'm thinking, oh my God, what did Kevin Spacey do to this guy? It's sex abuse. What did he sexually assault him? Did he, rape him? Did he force him into certain acts that were, whatever? What is it? This is the claim that Spacey denies. All right, let me set it up. I'm going to tell you first what happened so you can get to the point. All right. This is what happened. He was, okay. He describes himself as a teenage actor learning the ropes in New York. He described himself as a shy kid who hung around with a crew of weirdo nerds who played Dungeons and Dragons and created fake magazines. He was interested in creative pursuits from a young age, acting in school plays and musicals like Lil Abner. Rapp said in his lawsuit that he met Spacey in 1986. So this is amazing to me too. 1986, 1996, 2006, 2016. 3.5 decades ago. This is a case from 3.5 decades ago. All right. So he met Spacey in 1986 when the two were performing in separate Broadway shows. Rapp along Ed Harris and Precious Sons, and Spacey with Jack Lemmon and Long Day's Journey into Night. Rapp testified that he saw the production of Long Day's Journey into Night with John Barrowman, a friend and fellow actor who was staying with Rapp and his mother, a registered nurse and single parent. Rapp and Barrowman went backstage to meet Lemmon. Spacey came in and invited Rapp and Barrowman to a dinner nearby. The three then went into an adult nightclub. Okay, first of all, how old is this kid and where's his mom? Sorry. I mean, if he's a teenager, mom has to be there somewhere. Anyway, they went to an adult nightclub called Limelight at Spacey's suggestion. So supposedly, Spacey said, let's go to this club. I don't know. Did they not check IDs? How old did the kid look? Was he, because he was a Spacey, he automatically gets in, which may happen. Rapp claimed that Spacey later invited him to a party at his apartment. He decided to attend for several reasons, he told the jurors, explaining he was honored by the chance to join a colleague at a gathering and eager to show some independence from his mom. Okay, so I don't know how he got to the party. I don't know what he told his mom, but he went to this party, supposedly. Now, all this is alleged, by the way, because it's 35 years ago. And I think Spacey basically said, if anything happened, I'm sorry about it. Maybe I was drunk. I don't even know. It's 35 years ago. Maybe he does know, but the problem is it's 35 years ago. And nobody's going to know what happened. So he testified he arrived at the party on the Upper East Side by himself. He said he did not recognize the other guests and felt uncomfortable. Well, I thought you went to the party to be independent and to get to see people. So why would you be uncomfortable at that point? So he went into a bedroom to watch television. He just wandered into some bedroom and turned on the TV and hidden. I don't know. That's weird. Spacey later appeared in the doorway, seeming inebriated and unsteady on his feet, Rapp said in his testimony. Now, here comes the sexual assault, okay? And I can only do the sexual assault here on YouTube because you'll see what I mean. He said that Spacey approached him, grabbed his buttocks, lifted him onto a bed, which I thought he was already sitting on, but okay, and briefly lay down on him before he managed to wriggle out. I had to get out of there, Rapp testified. He told jurors that he managed to get to the front door where Spacey allegedly asked, "Are you sure you want to leave?" And Rapp replied yes and walked back to the apartment on Upper East Side where he was staying with his mother. Rapp told jurors that his mind was racing after the alleged encounter, and he asked himself, how do I recover from this incredibly upsetting and frightening experience? God. Oh, get out of here. I'm sorry. This should never be in a court of law. This is the stupidest thing I ever heard. First of all, he wasn't raped. The most that happened to him was somebody sort of laid on top of him, and he said, no, that's it. I've had a few guys lay on top of me in my lifetime. I got over it, like 5 minutes later, even when I was a teenager. I'm like, hey, dude, get off of me. Now, it didn't ruin me permanently because some guy rolled over on me or tried to get a kiss. This didn't, what does he say? An incredibly upsetting and frightening experience. Guy, nothing happened. Nothing really happened. Was he a drunk guy who, you came to his house, and I admit you're a teenager, but we're all talking 35 years ago. I tell you, 35 years ago, things were a little bit less all that big deal about 15, 16, 17-year-old boys. Anyways, in there, and the guy, so Spacey supposedly, allegedly, likes him and goes, hey, and lays on top of him, and he goes, no, and he walks away. And Spacey says, you want to go? And he says, yes. He says, okay. And Spacey's supposedly drunk. This is such an upsetting experience that for the next 35 years, you're crying about it. I'm sorry. That's just the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. I mean, oh my God. Much as I think, if Spacey did that, it was inappropriate. That's absolutely true. I have had men try inappropriate things with me, and I haven't been fond of it, and I pushed them away. I yelled at them. I'm not talking about a true sexual assault. A true sexual assault. I'm talking about what I consider just somebody getting overly romantic, shall we say, for a few seconds. This is going to destroy you for the rest of your life. 35 years later, you got to take this guy to court and accuse him of something that happened 35 years ago because he laid on top of you. That's it. I mean, I don't even understand how this is in court. I don't understand why these things exist. Spacey was only 26 at the time, by the way, as well. I'm not saying 26 gives you an excuse, but 26, there used to be a time when teenage girls went with guys in their 20s and teenage boys went with guys in their 20s. It wasn't that shocking. And so for a person to make a pass at you, wrong though it might have been, it wasn't what this guy is making it out to be, and that he can't get over it 3 decades later. I mean, this type of stuff goes in court, and it pisses me off because people are really, truly sexually assaulted, and it does cause them irreversible damage emotionally for maybe the rest of their lives. This is not a case of that. And to go on about how horrible it all was and how you can't get over it. I want to take him down to a unit where somebody walked down the street and was gang raped by 6 people. I want you to take you to some place where a woman was kept in a basement and tortured for 7 years and raped over and over and over again. I want to take you there. I want to take you to a woman who survived a serial killer who came through her window, put a knife to her throat, and raped her in every way possible, but she survived. I want you to go talk to her. Don't get court three and a half decades later and go, oh, I can't get over the fact that somebody laid on top of me. What a ridiculous thing, if I've ever heard a ridiculous thing. My God. And it's the acting business. I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans that go on there, and everybody knows that. That things that shouldn't happen is casting couches and all that stuff, and a lot of drinking and partying and inappropriate behavior. But geez, yeah, isn't this an everyday hazard for women? Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, come on. Now, yes, it is. These things happen. I mean, the funny thing is, it's just, if a woman regrets having sex with someone, they can say it's rape. I got raped a lot in uni. Well, I always joked. I said, I might have been raped, but I couldn't remember if I said yes or no, because I was drinking, or something. I mean, those are the jokes we can all make. I'm not. And again, I separate this from truly being sexually assaulted, truly suffering sexual assault. And I think we to over exaggerate stuff that I consider relatively minor and just part of living is really not fair to true victims of sex crimes. That just pisses me off because they really, I mean, what happened to them, you can't compare the two things. You just can't compare them. And to do so, it sickens me. It really does. So, and if you can't get over something very, very minor, in my opinion, is maybe unpleasant. Okay, lots of unpleasant things happen in life. But if you hang on to it for the next 30 years, you got psychological problems that have nothing to do with what that was. I think the guy wants money. I think that's what he's there for. I think he's there to make money off of Kevin Spacey. And I say, I know I can't remember Kevin Spacey. I haven't paid any attention. I don't know if he was accused of other things too. I can't remember this. Sometimes with the Me Too type things, one person makes a complaint and then 20 people pile on and say that happened to me too, because the defense attorneys are real good at getting that information out. And so if you were anywhere near that person, you can claim that, because all you have to do is say, I went to a party and they were there and they did this to me. And with no proof that it actually happened. And it's interesting how a lot of times the claim of what happened is so minor that it just boggles my mind. It's not like the claim is like you were horrifically brutalized and you therefore you went to the police because you were truly raped. It's these little, and then you touched my boob. Oh my God. It's like, oh no, the worst thing that ever happened in life. I don't know. And here's the thing. If you really have an issue with some of these things, then you maybe got to watch what you do yourself. Because I mean, there is, when you put yourself in positions to have more quote freedom, and I mean that by drinking excessively, going to people's houses you don't know, going to parties with people you don't know, where there's heavy drinking and drug use, your chances of getting some of these things occurring to you are raised. If you don't want those things, maybe you need to live a different lifestyle, because there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying it can't happen to you if you live a better lifestyle. It can still happen. You can still get raped. You can still get molested living a better lifestyle, but your chances are way, way less. Let me tell you, they're way less if you're doing healthy things, but when you're getting trash drunk and ending up half naked in somebody's house and you go, I didn't expect that to happen. Maybe it shouldn't have, so it's not that people say, it's blaming the victim. But again, you get, you do have a responsibility in life to make good choices. And some of your choices will put you in situations where somebody else is not making good choices either. Maybe their choices are worse than yours. Maybe they're really bad choices. And then you're going to be a victim of that. So, that's all I can say. It's just some of this stuff is just crazy. What is that? Kevin Spacey supposedly has form. I'm not sure what that even means. Not sure what that even means. And speaking of this, I was asked to do this case, and let me see what time I got here. There was one other, there were like 3 cases, and I think I may just do one, and then I'll save the other ones for next week. But this one kind of fits in with this discussion, so I think I'm going to, that one I really wanted to do. I may have to do a whole separate show on that. Maybe I'll just do a separate video. Okay, I want to talk about this case because this is, I don't know. I always think it's Cynthia, but it's Cyntoia. I think her name is Cyntoia Brown. And she's kind of caused celeb now. And the question is she guilty of what she was accused of, or do we have another revisionist history thing going on with Cyntoia Brown? And do we have, what does it mean? And so I do want to talk about this one, and then I'll wrap it up, and then I'll do the next one either next week or I'll do a separate video on it. I was going to do justice for Julius. This is Julius Jones. It's a big case right now, but there's so much in that I don't want to, I'm going to shorten this a little bit by just doing this one other case. Cyntoia Brown. Now, Cyntoia Brown, people believe that she was wrongly convicted, okay? Wrongly convicted, and then there were tons of appeals. Let's see, when she was convicted let me tell you when she was convicted. She started the verdict was she was found guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated robbery, and sentenced to life in prison. She was 16 when she went to prison, okay? 16. And this all occurred in wait a minute. I'm trying to find out when it actually occurred. Wait a minute. Okay, let me find out when it actually happened. Why don't they have the date it happened? Come on now, folks. Hold on a second. I have to go through this here. Oh, 2004. So this happened in 2004. Let me read you the basics. Cyntoia Brown Long is now an American author and speaker. This is what happens after you get people on your side, okay? Who was convicted of murder and robbery at the age of 16. Brown, who was a victim of child sex trafficking, and I want to talk about the issue of child sex trafficking again. What does that actually mean? At the time of the incident, she claimed that Johnny Allen had paid her $150 to have sex with him and that she feared for her life during their encounter, leading her to shoot him. Prosecutors argued that Brown killed Allen while he was sleeping in order to rob him. Brown was found guilty of robbing and murdering Allen and sentenced to life imprisonment. But there was a renewed interest in the case in 2013. Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam commuted her original sentence to 15 years because she was underage at the time, because she was 16. She was a juvenile. And she was released on 2019. Her story is detailed in the 2011 documentary. And here come the documentary makers to remake history and revisionist, as it usually is. And it gets everybody into believing these things happen the way the documentary says they happen. And so it was released. It's called Me Facing Love, Cyntoia's Story. And in her memoir, Free Cyntoia, My Search for Redemption in the American Prison System. Her fight for freedom from prison is documented in the Netflix special. Look how many are done. Murder to Mercy, the Cyntoia Brown story that came out in 2020. All right. Now, the claim here is that she was a victim of sex trafficking. And this is the way they'll present it. She had an unfortunate life. She ended up in somebody put her in sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. They trafficked her to this creepy dude, and in fear of her life, she killed him. That's a story. Okay, let me tell you how it really goes. This is all on Wikipedia, so it's just basic information. Her father's unknown. Her biological mother drank alcohol during her pregnancy. Defense attorney would later claim that caused her to develop fetal alcohol syndrome. Following Brown's birth, the mother began to use crack cocaine, and unable to care for her infant daughter, she gave her child up for adoption. Now, interesting, here's the next part. Although raised in a loving home, now I don't know what happened then. This is fascinating to me. Brown dropped out of elementary school. Elementary school? How do you drop out of elementary school if you're in a loving home? Elementary school. And began to have encounters with the juvenile court system. Encounters in elementary school. Okay. She spent time with the state's Department of Children's Services between 2001 and 2003 after committing crimes against a person and crimes against property. All right. She spent 2 years in DCS facilities and a year at Woodland Hills Youth Development Center in Nashville. She fled those facilities several times, eventually ending up as a runaway on the streets of Nashville in August of 2004. All right. My guess is for all this is happening, she is one of these children who, sometimes people adopt, they have issues from the original home. I don't know if she had issues in that home, but she was incorrigible. It's what they used to call incorrigible, and which may be psychopathic. So she was committing crime after crime after crime, and it ended up in this disaster in the juvenile services because she's committing crimes against people. Okay. Now, she ran away. I keep talking about how sex trafficking in the United States is usually about runaways, and they're not being trafficked in the sense. People think when they think of trafficking, you think of somebody being abducted and taken to some place and then put into prostitution. That's not the way it works. It's usually a runaway is then taken off the streets by some pimp or something, So anyway, that's what happened. She ran away, and she hooked up with this guy named Cutthroat. Right there, that's trouble. All right. And he began trafficking her. In other words, he became a pimp. He was a pimp. She was a runaway and a juvenile delinquent. Okay. Who then is more willing to do these kind of things. And if you take a look at Taxi Driver, for example, and you see Jodie Foster's role as a 12-year-old, she was tough, a tough girl and willing to do a lot of tough things because she ran away from home. Her home life sucked. I don't know if she was a juvenile delinquent, but I wouldn't be surprised. And then she's now got her boyfriend in quote pimp, and taxi driver, and she's prostituting on the streets, and she prostitutes. She brings back the money, gives it to her pimp. He takes care of her. He feeds her. He plays her part of a boyfriend, and so she gets some kind of comfort from him. And sometimes he beats her up if he feels like it. So during this time, she lived in the in-town Suites Hotel. Brown supported McLaughlin and herself via involuntary prostitution. Well, it's involuntary because she's a juvenile, but that's why it's called involuntary. If she were 2 years old, it'd be called voluntary. As a victim of domestic minor sex trafficking. According to Brown, McLaughlin, that's cutthroat, threatened, beat, and raped her on multiple occasions. According to her, according to her. So, she's going to tell a story and she's going to make it sound really bad. So we don't know what he did. His name is Cutthroat, so he's not sounding like a great guy, but we also don't have necessarily proof of what she's doing. All right. So on the night of August 6, 2004, now she's 16. She meets 43-year-old Johnny Michael Allen in the parking lot of the Sonic Drive-In. Allen was a real estate agent and supposedly was a youth pastor. Well, he was a youth pastor and a Sunday school teacher, and had started a homeless ministry in the local Baptist church. According to the detective, Allen asked her if she was hungry and if she was up for any action. Asserted. Now, that detective asserted this because Brown's dead, so I don't know who you can believe on that one. So he gave her food. They ordered dinner, and then Allen drove her to his home. At later hearing, Brown testified. Now she's testifying. Now this is a girl testifying. She testified that she agreed to have sex with Allen for $150, but claimed that they never actually engaged in sexual intercourse. So again, we have claims. Now the family claims that he just tried to help homeless kids. Now the families are often blind to these things. So I don't know if he just tried to help homeless girls or he was helping them in order to pay them for prostitution. Now, in my opinion, if you're helping a homeless child and you're a minister, the last thing you do is take them to your house. So I'm going to say he was a shady character too. All right. But says then that the lead prosecutor says that he picked her up to pay for sex. Okay. And that is just a fact. And I agree with that. He was going to have sex with her and pay her. In court documents, another minor who was a waitress at the local restaurant claimed that she and other young teens at the restaurant felt uncomfortable whenever they had to serve Allen. In other words, the guy's creepy and he was paying girls for sex. All right. So at some point during the encounter, so now they're back at Allen's home, Brown shot Allen in the back of the head using her own 40 caliber handgun. She's 16. She's carrying a weapon. She shoots him in the back of the head. All right. Now, she then stole $172 from his wallet and 2 of his firearms and fled the scene in his truck. I mean, this girl is she's a criminal. She's been in the criminal system a really long time and knows how to be a criminal. Brown left Allen's truck at a Walmart parking lot and flagged down an SUV for a ride home. And then they found what happened. Okay, so now let's see. Oh, the neighbor, the detectives say Brown asked the neighbor to drive her back to Allen's house so she could steal more items, but he refused. The neighbor reportedly told the detective that Brown told him that she had shot somebody in the head for $50,000 and some guns, and that she had shot somebody in the head last night and blew his brains out. Oh, that sounds nice. Okay, then she told him that the killing was a fat lick, which is a robbery, and that she'd been waiting on a lick like that all week. So then she turned to him and said, "You better shut up or I'll get you too." All right. Now they determined that Brown never denied shooting Allen. Rather, she argued the act was committed in self-defense. Brown stated that Allen intimidated her by repeatedly standing over her and touching her while she lay in his bed. Well, she's prostituting. That's what you're supposed to do when you prostitute, is let men touch you. So, and that she believed Allen was reaching for a firearm as they lay in bed. This led her to shoot Allen with her own firearm, which she had gotten from her pimp for protection. They said that's not true. The guy was sleeping at the time she shot him in the back of the head. So based on the position in which his body was discovered, they believe Allen was asleep when he was shot. His hands were underneath his head, interlocked when he was shot. He was like this, and she shot him in the back of the head. So I don't think she was in any big danger. Okay. Then let's see. Oh, it gets worse. So they take Brown to the Western Mental Health Institution for an evaluation. She had allegedly attacked and threatened a nurse after the nurse did not allow her to call her adoptive mother. The nurse then claimed that Brown jumped over her desk, grabbed her hair and face, and hit her, giving her several bruises and abrasion. During the attack, Brown allegedly told the nurse, "I shot the man in the back of the head one time, bitch. I'm going to shoot you in the back of the head 3 times. I'd love to hear your blood splatter on the wall." This is not a nice girl. Let's put it this way. 3 jail inmates, hoping to receive leniency, claimed she spoke to them about the crime and said she wanted to feel what it was like to kill somebody. I don't know. It's inmates. I can't trust that. Further evidence against Brown came from a phone call between her and her adoptive mother. During the call, Brown said, "I killed somebody. I executed him." Wow. It goes on and on and on. So, any rate, then came the documentary people, then came the people who want to help out the poor girl. So she's when she's in prison, she gets her GED, she does some studying. And then when did they start doing the I'm trying to see when they started hooking up with her she married while she was in prison. She married a musician and entrepreneur, Jamie Long. And so now she's married. And where's the clemency? When Brown's case went viral following several high-profile celebrity social media posts expressing outrage over her sentence, because supposedly she did this in self-defense and she was a victim of child sex trafficking. So she's totally 100% an innocent girl all the way through. And this is what people envision. This happy little girl, 16 years old, got kidnapped and forced to go to this man's house where he tried to rape her, even though, and then she shot him. This is how this stuff is watered down. And who was involved in this? Yes, you bet. Rihanna, Kim Kardashian, Snoop Dogg, LeBron James. The usual crowd that goes after these cases and tries to free people who are guilty as hell. So they're trying to get clemency for her. And so there was all that going on. And then, of course, eventually you get the book, and then you get the series. Now, I don't know how Son of Sam's law applies here, because she actually was convicted of killing the guy. But now she's out of prison. She is, of course, against the criminal justice system. So she's now a speaker going around the country, speaking on sex trafficking and her experience. The ACLU brought her in to head their national campaign, urging governors to use their executive power of clemency to combat systemic injustice and racism. Then her memoir came out, let's see, and then the Netflix thing, blah, blah, blah. And now they have a nonprofit organization called the Foundation for Justice. Now, I don't have any problem with somebody changing their life. I don't have any problem with somebody eventually finding the right way. I just question when I see a person who from very early childhood seems to act in a very psychopathic manner and has been violent and dangerous since they were an elementary school person. I wonder what kind of person they are. Now, what will happen sometimes is once you go to prison, you rehabilitate your image, because and then especially when you get a lot of attention, now you've just transferred. You used to get attention by doing bad things. Now you get attention by people trying to help you, trying to save you. And then you get out and now you have little wings and you're an angel. And I don't know. I'm bothered by the fact that if she still lies about this stuff, she executed that man. Now he might be a scumbag. Maybe I don't feel sorry for him. But if he hired her as a prostitute, which he shouldn't have done because she was underage, but if he hired her for that, he wasn't going to harm her. And if she just was there to steal his stuff and shoot him in the head and run off with his, because he enjoyed doing that, that's something abnormal. Now, if she admitted that's exactly what she did and she had severe problems and she's come a long way from there, maybe I can accept that. But I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm pretty sure that maybe I'll have to go read her book and do a whole show on this. If her book says that she did it in self-defense, she's still lying. And I don't have any, And that really bothers me because she murdered somebody. And 16 years old is not too young to be given a long sentence because you are a danger. Now, of course, she's got everybody around her now. So will she be a danger again because now she's making money and she's hanging out with Kim Kardashian? Maybe she won't commit another murderous crime, but does she deserve this kind of adulation? I have issues with that. And it bothers me because, again, we have truly innocent people who we should be supporting, and we do have problems in the criminal justice system we should address. But why do we keep glorifying violent criminals and touting them as some kind of how they were abused by the system? There was a lot of abuse. It started with her mother being, getting pregnant with some guy she didn't know and being a drug addict and dumping her. And I don't know what happened in the adoptive home. I don't know. They just always had a problem with her since the day she was dropped in their house, and she was a little psychopath from day one, and that she just incorrigible. And then that's why she ended up in running, not going to school and doing all kinds of crimes when she was a kid. Or was her adoptive home terrible too? I don't know. I don't know that. Maybe I'll have to read a book on that one, but I don't know if I believe it. But do I feel like the right thing was done? No, I don't. I think she was guilty of exactly what she did. And if she were a guy, would they have let her out? If it was a guy who was going around doing these kind of things, some vicious young male going around doing these things and then killed somebody off like that, would we just say, okay, we'll give you clemency and we'll let you out and we'll give you a documentary? I don't know. I just wonder. Frustrating. Molly says, gotta run. Thanks for the many examples of mayhem. Yeah, well, that's just a day for this. Carolina says, wasn't Kim K planning to become a lawyer without going to college or law school? I wonder how that's going. Well, she would have been a good defense lawyer. I mean, that seems to be her whole forte. She likes to stand up for what she considers the wrongly imprisoned. She's part of the Innocence Project. And if it wasn't that so many of the people she picked are actually guilty, I would think that was a cool thing to do. But that's the problem. They're not picking innocent people a lot of times. I mean, I'm shocked at how many times they're not innocent. And the other story I was going to do, the other one is very similar. And I think I'll say I'll do that either on a separate show, or I'll even do this show and I'll maybe do a whole separate video on this particular case, and also the other fellow, but he got clemency too. And now that finds the Julius Jones. I mean, that guy. I mean, again, a massive criminal, and so yeah, I guess that is a guy they're trying to get out too. And I think a lot of this is a racial thing. Say the system is being, overly harsh on and all this corrupt stuff going on. But they have so many. The thing is happening is that if the person's innocent, I would have no problem with this, because yes, if an innocent person has been put in prison, I'm going to have to do a show on the African American doctor who was accused of killing his wife, and he was innocent. And there was a time when that system did do in this guy. And I talked about that case with we're talking about Reuben Hurricane Carter, who, in my opinion, is guilty as heck of the triple murder in New Jersey, and 100% psychopathic. And it bothered me that they did a whole movie on him and praised him, and then he also went around, with making money and giving speeches. And I'm looking at this doctor, this African American doctor who got screwed by the system. And where the heck was everybody? Where were they for him? He was truly innocent. For gosh sakes, go after the innocent people. Don't keep trying to get guilty people out, because I lose all respect. When I see what you're trying to do, I lose all respect, because that's not okay with me. At least find innocent people. And then I'm like, we have to do something about the system. If they're convicting innocent people, I want to be there. But all we got is somebody who's guilty 20 years ago, and then they massive amount of money and attorneys and appeal after appeal after appeal. And over time, they start claiming all these kind of things. In each appeal, they'll claim the police did this and this will happen and that happened, and everything is crooked, until the fact is everybody's so confused that they go, okay. And then then Hollywood comes in and start making the documentaries and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, the pressure is so strong that some governor someplace goes, okay, I'll give them clemency. That's not how the system's supposed to work. That's not justice. That's a lot of politicking. You know what I mean? And so that's why I have a problem with the Innocence Project. Not because I don't think there should be an Innocence Project, but I want everybody you fight for to be clearly so innocent that there's no question. And I have a list of people I would like the Innocence Project to go and get out of prison, and they won't touch them. So I guess they're not cool enough or something. And it's just frustrating, very, very frustrating. So, yeah, very irritated about these things. Michaela says, there are people the world would be better off with and need a bullet to the head. Sorry, I know that's not PC. Well, that's why the death penalty does exist. It's and I understand people's objection to the death penalty because it's putting us having to murder somebody theoretically, because at the time the person is being killed, they are not a threat to our lives, and that's what justifiable homicide always is. So a lot of the claims people don't like it is the fact that it's very cold-bloodedly done, which is true. I mean, you're cold-bloodedly killing somebody, even if they deserve every bit of it. You're still cold-bloodedly doing it. And then the second part is always, and this part cracks me up, is it's so inhumane that the method of killing is inhumane. And it used to be, people were hung, and then they went away from that and went to the gas chambers, and they went to the electric chair, and now they're giving medications, but they're saying now that the drugs they give them cause them this drowning feeling when they're dying, and it's horrible. And I'm like, there's very simple ways of killing somebody if you're executing them they'll be out in 3 seconds flat. They won't feel a thing. Why aren't we using the ones that actually just are so simple? Why are we making it so difficult? Because, that's just crazy. People commit suicide every day and they don't suffer for more than a second. So if you can kill yourself without suffering, why can't you kill somebody else the same way if you're doing an execution? So it's like, I don't understand this. It's been going on for like decades. How should we kill people? I'm like, just do it an easy way. It's like, it's not that difficult. I don't know what we're doing. I wonder, I can't fathom it. I can't fathom why we make it such a huge process when it's really quite absolutely simple. The reason that, they used to do like a guillotine is because, quite frankly, that worked really well. A firing squad was quick. I mean, there are simple ways. And you can even make it even less grotesque than you can do a drug thing. And think about this. We put animals down all the time, and we don't seem to have an issue over them suffering before they die. So why is it this whole big thing for these killers? So the whole thing is wrapped up in a whole bunch of confusing, and I think it's done on purpose so that the argument will go on instead of making it much simpler. So in my opinion, you have a method of execution which is simple and instant. Just that's done. If you just don't want them on the face of the earth, just do that. Or you can say, we don't want to commit what is called a murder because a person was not, it's not justifiable at that time because they're not trying to attack us. So we can just keep them penned up. We can do that. And we can spend money on them for 50 years to keep them penned up. And then we can argue over whether, how we pen them up. And then that becomes another argument, because if you put them in solitary confinement, people say that's cruel and unusual punishment. And of course, even they might have killed 17 people and tortured them before they died. But hey, that's okay. We can't have this guy be unhappy for not be able to have television, so, and not be able to hang out with his buddies, even though all the people he killed can't do that. But we want this guy to be able to hang out with his buddies. Oh, you should be able to go to the yard and lift weights and get exercise. So this argument just goes on and on about what is fair and humane and blah, blah, blah. So, and I think that's, we do have to have that discussion because it's an issue in our country and every country in the world. But I don't think we need to try to get people out of the death penalty when they're guilty just because we don't like the death penalty. In other words, either you get rid of the death penalty, but you don't give clemency to a killer just because of that, because you're following the law. So why are you trying to get this guilty person out of that? That bothers me. So I think we're mixing. In other words, we're using, there's an agenda behind it for why things are done. And so the agenda can be anything. It can be about race. It can be about whether you're male or female. It can be about poor to rich. It can be about, death penalty issues. about control, about power. It's all kinds of things all mixed up. But sometimes they get so mixed up that we forget about justice when we're doing it, and that bothers me. There is no death penalty in Australia, and in many other places there isn't. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, everybody's got their own opinion on that, because some people think it's inhumane to keep a person in lockup for 70 years for murdering somebody, and then we have to pay for it. So some people think it's more humane to just do the death penalty, get that over with. The guy's made his choice. And one of the things I do point out, and this isn't from the point of view whether we're comfortable enacting the death penalty on somebody, but just the simple fact that this is going to be my last point, because I think it's just important to say, somebody who's killed another person has enacted the death penalty on that person. They enacted that death penalty on that person even without a trial, even without that person being guilty of anything. They have chosen, they believe in the death penalty. Murderers believe in the death penalty. They just don't believe in the death penalty for them. That's all. So I would say if you don't believe in the death penalty, don't commit a death penalty on somebody. And then you won't have to get one for yourself. I think that's fair. So anyway, I'm gonna have to revisit some of these cases in a longer time when I have a bigger time span, because there's just so much in some of these cases and I just can't get to them. So I'm going to either do part 2 of that next week about the other guy, the Julius Jones case. I might do next week, or I might just do a whole separate show on that, because that was a request. I think I hit up all the other basic ones. I was going to do that's another whole thing I want to do. And, every week I'm surprised how much news there is and how many cases there are to talk about and so many situations. So yeah, I'm going to have to get to some of these other ones next time. So anyway, I'm glad you were all here today. It was fun. I'm not quite sure. I have a soccer game issue coming up, and I'm trying to decide since the soccer game is going to be on Sunday. So I might be doing the show a little later, like at 5:00 on Sunday evening, maybe about 5. So, if Australia's awake and you want me to do an Australian show, let me know. And since I'm moving the time, I might do something from that neck of the woods. So let me know. If I know you might have told me already, but I have so many cases coming in. Tell me again. I'm going to figure this out tomorrow, what show I'm going to do Sunday. And so if you're from any place that is going to actually be awake at 5, wait a minute, let me see. It's 15 hours ahead in Australia, right? So what happens when I do a show at 3:00? Well, that works for Australia. Wait a minute, I'm losing my. Wait a minute, I got to look at my clock. And Lisa, what time? If I do a show at 3 PM, what time is it in? See, it's in the morning. So yeah, okay, hold on. I'm just trying to remember. I got to go to my world. My world. Wait a minute, my world clock. Where's my world clock? Oh, here it is. Okay. So Sydney is 15 hours ahead. Auckland's 17 hours ahead. Okay. So if I do a show at 3 PM, then it's only 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning. But if I do it at 5 PM, it would be 10 in the morning or even noon on Monday for those people who, 6 AM is too early. 8 AM is still too early. I could do a show at 6 PM is 8 AM here. Okay, how many of you are going to be awake on Monday morning if I do a show at 6 or 7 PM on Sunday? How many of you are awake? Then I lose the UK and I lose Denmark. See, it's hard. It's so hard to do. But okay. If you want me to do a show at your time, it's Sunday, which will be your Monday time. If you want me to do a show, send me the best case you've got, and I'll do it at the time that'll work, and I'll do the case you really want. So send me that information. So Lisa S says, "I'll be here anytime." Well, at least you're on my time zone, so it makes it easier. But it's so frustrating because I got people that are 6 to 7 hours ahead in in England and in Ireland and in Denmark and other parts of Europe. And then I go, anybody who's India is a really bad time frame because that's like 12 hours ahead and it never seems to work. And then same thing for Japan, China, that area. Then you get off to Australia, New Zealand, and that area. There's a chance of them being able to come to certain shows, but not other shows. So it gets very confusing. So, but anyway, send me if you got a specific time, send me the best show for me to do, and I'll think about that. So I've got at least another, this is Wednesday, at least another day, maybe a day and a half to figure it out. So I'll get out the information on Sunday for somewhere on Friday, probably. Christine says I'll be here anytime too. Well, let's see. I want the best case for this week. I really do. Yeah. So, and I would love it to be from Australia or New Zealand if you've got a really great one. And I know I have some of them listed, but I'm just letting you get another chance to say, why didn't you do this one? This one's awesome. So I can take a look at that. Anyway, that's it. Fun little, all kinds of weird things today, and a little bit more political than I normally like to be. Really, I try to stay away from that. But the one thing that bothers me was when politics interferes with justice, and it's like, I don't care what the politics are. You can fight those things on another day and another time. But when it comes down to one case, this person, did they commit the crime or didn't they? And we should be paying attention to that. So as a criminal profiler, I don't like to see all this crap come in. And yes, I am concerned about police misconduct. I'm concerned about prosecutorial misconduct, which I showed in the Anderson Cotta case. But that was because politics got into it. It wasn't because they were that was, I don't know. It's so I don't want to see that happen, no matter what the politics is, what would cause misconduct. But it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be in the police cases. It shouldn't be in the prosecutors' cases. And it shouldn't be in the Innocence Project. And it shouldn't be in clemency. These things, politics shouldn't be there. It should be, did they do the right thing or not? You don't have to like the prosecutor. You don't have to like the police officer. You don't have to like the criminal or love the criminal. The person who's, been convicted. You have to know what the truth is and go with the truth and justice. That's my thing about it. If I could defend a person I can't stand, I think it's a real sleazebag. If he didn't commit the crime, if I were a lawyer, if I knew he committed the crime, I couldn't do it. Even if I really liked the person, because that's not what the system is supposed to do. It's supposed to be about the crime, not whether the person has a fan club or not because you want to change something politically. There's a lot of things I'd like to change politically, but I don't think I should do it through criminal profiling. I mean, the person's guilty or they're not, and and if they're not, they're not. And if they are, they are. And my personal feelings about the person or their politics or my own politics shouldn't matter. So that's always what gets me frustrated. And I've seen a lot of it in this week. This week has been like crazy with prosecutorial issues with Mosby and with Parisa, I can't remember that woman's name, Degani Tofty in Virginia. Very much bothered by them because I see that they've allowed politics to take over their prosecutorial job, the thing they're supposed to be doing. And I think one person tried to convict an innocent person, the other one got what I consider a guilty person out of prison. And I don't think it's because of evidence on either side. That's what bothers me. Not the evidence. It wasn't the evidence on either side that changed anything. It was politics on both sides. And that's not the way it should work. And when we start doing that more and more, we got problems. So anyway, goodbye, everybody. And I will see you on probably Sunday at some point in time. So do send over your ideas, and I will try to, maybe I'll be surprised at what I end up picking. But if you send me a real good one, it'll be the one you picked. See you later.